So very recently, I have been rewatching some YouTube videos about Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. And one of those videos was an Ancient Gear deck. And within that Ancient Gear deck, they modified the deck to be more modernized. So I figured that, hey, I might as well do the same thing. But instead of modernizing it, okay, we more like give it some old school taste. Like, take it a bit old school, like some good old classic Ancient Gear beatdown deck, which thankfully this is what it is. So the cards that you would need in here, monster-wise, are 2 Hunting Hounds, 2 Soldiers, 3 Frames. The frames are very important. 2 Tankers, 2 Cyber Dragons, 1 Engineer, 1 Dragoon, yeah, I think that's what it is. 1 Jinzo, by the way, 1 Jinzo, 2 Beasts, 2 Golems, and 2 Golem Ultimate Pounds, which these two come into play that are very important. And so for the non-main engine, we have, our casual hand traps like Ash Blossom, Ghost Sister, Maxi, and others. Now for spells, 2 Power Bonds in case if we don't get our fusions, which by the way come into play as well as Ancient Gear Golems. 2 Ancient Gear Drills to get out said either Power Bond or Gear Fusion. Then you have Amplifier to go with Jinzo. Then we have 2 Castles, 2 Fortresses, 2 Cosmos Channeling, 2 Clockwork Knights to help us with our Cyber Dragon Fusion, which we have in here. And we have 2 Cold Buys and 2 Ancient Gear Duels, which if we control either Ancient Gear Golem or a monster that mentions it in our monster zone, unaffected by activated opponent's monster effects. So if your opponent wanted to activate Psych and Punisher to banish one of our monsters, can't do that. Or if your opponent wanted to activate a, let's say a negation, or wanted to activate a negation for our Ancient Gear frame, can't do that either, because it mentions Ancient Gear Golem or one spell that mentions it from deck to hand. Keyword, mentions. Guess what it says? Ancient Gear Golem and monsters that mention it in your monster zone. Keep this in mind. Monsters that mention it, actual monsters in the monster zone. Keep that in mind. Now, on to the extra deck. We have 2 Chimera Fortress Dragons. I mean, all you need is 1 Cyber Dragon and 1 plus machine monsters, depending on how much machine monsters you pretty much can use. Which, thankfully, we have Clockwork Knight in here, which, by the way, is one of the most busted cards, or at least continuous spell-wise, in the entire game. Because all you have to do is just activate Clockwork Knight, or if your opponent has a entire field of, say, like heavy monster negates, all you have to do is just play Clockwork Knight, summon your Cyber Dragon, boom, wipe the entire field clean with Chimera Fortress Dragon. Then your opponent should be able to rage quit, but probably won't. I mean, I don't know. If I saw this happen, then I would definitely rage quit as well. Anywho, now, back on track. One Ultimate Ancient Gear Golem, one Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, one Cyber Dragon Nova, and one Cyber Dragon Infinity. Which, I mean, you don't have to play the other Cyber Dragon cards, but it pretty much helps us out in the long run, especially when we have Infinity on the field. Because if our opponent activates a card or effect, then we could just detach one material from the card and negate the activation. So that's pretty much very broken indeed. And so for the links, we have Predaplant Anaconda, which is pretty self-explanatory. Pay 2 racks for a fusion or polymerization and send it to the grave, and just it becomes that card's activated effect. Now, is the extra deck viable? I must say for now, no. Because the reason why it's not compatible for now is because we have like 7 extra deck. Now, we don't have very many other cards in here. Now, in the future, maybe I can update the extra deck and add in more cards to it, if that makes sense. But yeah, that's pretty much about it. So the end board that you would want to have for this specific deck is Cyber Dragon Infinity in your extra monster zone, your Ancient Gear, your Chaos Ancient Gear, your Ultimate Ancient Gear, and your Chimera Fortress Dragon. Dragoon. Or Dragon, I should say. Or maybe, if you want to spice it up a little bit, maybe Ancient Gear, Dragon, and maybe Jinzo. So that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Takes up like 5 monster zones and like 1 extra monster zone. Which, I mean, you don't really need any other monsters in replacement for this, because you can just run these and you'll be perfectly fine. Now, we have 2 negates. Okay, we have a Dragoon, we have a spell and trap or effect negate where we can send 1 monster from hand or face up, or just send 1 Ancient Gear Golem from deck to grave to negate it. Or we have a Cyber Dragon Infinity, which negates a card and or effect. Now, compatibility, I would give this deck a 7 to 6 out of 10. Now, this deck can brick at times, but as long as you have the materials for it, then you should be fine. But, yeah, this has been the Ancient Gear video, and I will see y'all later. So, yeah.